that is where it is hiding, just in there. Alright, I'm just going to move on from here. What a wonderful sighting with this elephant. And I want to just show you and explain to you what I meant by those tusks and why I wanted to show you that little groove. Just give me a second. So let me just jump out here and show you quickly. So what happens is, while the elephants are feeding, they'll go and they'll take their trunks, as we saw, and they wrap it around the branches and they break the branches. But occasionally with some branches and with a lot of grass, they wrap their trunk around the grass, and what they do is they use their tusk to actually pull the grass, and by pulling the grass or the leaves or the trees and the branches constantly over that same part of the tusk, it actually starts grinding in, and you get that very, very clear groove which we saw on that tusk. So it's incredibly interesting to see how the grass can actually start cutting into the tusk a little bit, and that's obviously years and years of using that tusk to help tear and break grass, and you get these very clear grooves. And then with the right tusk that we saw, it's possibly right tusk dominant. You can sometimes see elephants will choose to use one tusk over the other, and maybe if they're scraping or tearing bark, they'll use that one tusk more often than the other one, and you then see it shaving down or becoming slightly worn down from tearing bark and tearing branches off of trees, or using it to dig. So you can see those signs very, very clearly on the tusks. Isn't that interesting? So we're going to continue our way down this road, see what else we can find. It was wonderful to spend time with those elephants. I think let's head back to Stef, who's still on his bushwalk, and see if he's managed to find any more lion tracks.
So we're almost certain that those lions were chasing around some more buffalo again last night. I mean, that's not uncharacteristic or anything for these Nkuhuma ladies. After all this time, they've been feasting on nothing but buffalo over the last couple of months. But what gives me that idea and that impression is the fact that there's so many tracks of buffalo heading, all at the same age, heading in the same direction. I'll see if I can try and find you one, just to show you what I'm talking about. One that's probably a little bit clearer than just a vague impression in the sand. Alright, let's carry on walking in this direction. Ah, here we go. So here's a buffalo track. Here we go here. So that is the fresh track of a Cape buffalo, and you can see relatively big. I mean, I would say that that is probably not the biggest buffalo track I've ever seen, but it is the back foot of a buffalo track, and that means that it is the smaller of the 2 feet. And all of these tracks are heading in this direction, which means that to find these lion, we've got to walk in this direction. But you can see how the vegetation is starting to thicken up over here, and how we are having to walk through with much more caution than what we were doing literally just a few weeks ago. And that's because we've got to take our time to make sure that nothing is lying on the other side of a bush on a carcass. As you'd know, lions can be dangerous when you approach them in an area where their cubs can't get away from. So we know that these lionesses have got cubs with them. We know that they're going to be quite defensive over a piece of meat that they have, over a meal. The cubs are not going to be going anywhere because they're on that meal. And so it always is advisory to just move through with caution. So we take a couple of steps to the other side of this thicket. That's how we do it. And then we wait and see what's on the other side of the next thicket. So let's see how we do it. Okay, this tells me something about the relative age or freshness of these tracks. Now, Corey, I'll get to your question now about what we're going to do if an animal does charge us. Right after I do this, this is a very good sign to give us an indication of how old those buffalo tracks were. This is the buffalo dung from those buffalo that were running away. You can see it's relatively fresh. It has a skin on top of it, which means that it was probably done at some point early in the evening last night, and you can see these circular mounds of sand. These are from dung beetles that have already processed this dung. They've already processed the dung into balls which they have now buried underneath the dung itself. And this tells me that these buffalo were running through here not early this morning, but probably early yesterday evening. It takes some time for buffalo dung to get worked over like this, a good couple of hours at least anyway. So a good couple of hours old already. But it doesn't mean that the lions didn't catch these buffalo. It just means that this particular buffalo tracks that we're seeing are not as fresh as I thought they were. Now, Corey, on to your question about what we would do if a lion charges us. Now, although it's incredibly scary when an animal decides to shout at you out of the bush, and if that animal feels threatened enough to actually warrant chasing you out of their area, it's just a very clear message to say, please just give us some space. It's a communication that they have with us. It's a very scary communication, and one that you can't mistake for anything else. But essentially, it's just a message. You're way too close to me. I need you to create distance. And so that's what we try and do. What you don't want to do is act submissive. So what we don't want to do is turn your back and run through the bush. That to a lion is just a signal to chase you down. What you want to try and do is go, hey, I see you. So you make a big noise. I see you like this. Please don't come. You can talk whatever. The language that comes out of people's mouths is, in these types of situations, is quite impressive. But you go, hey, I see you, and then immediately, if that animal stops, you create distance. So you walk back, maintaining eye contact with the lion. That's what you want to do, and walking backwards as much as what you can. If that lion comes again at you, hey, you stop, shout at that lion. Generally, they stop. And as soon as you've created, you cross this imaginary line at sort of the event horizon basically, which doesn't elicit a charge anymore. You can get to a point where those lions feel that you've moved a sufficient amount of distance not to represent a threat to themselves, their food, or their cubs, or their mate in the case of a male lion. And generally they'll just calm down. You know, the aggression sort of de-escalates exponentially after you've crossed that minimum line. And that's similar for most of the animals out here. Elephant, hippopotamus, rhino, buffalo, they're all pretty much the same. They just want you to leave them alone. In some instances though, you can't back away, and that is when you have gotten too close to them. For instance, if a lioness was sleeping on the other side of a bush and her cubs are suckling on her, she didn't hear you coming because of the wind blowing too hard in her ears, and you startle that animal from a very close proximity. What will happen is that animal instantaneously in the brain makes a decision. I either need to get out of here to save my life, it's called the flight reflex, or I need to fight. And that is, it's an instinctive, instantaneous decision. In that case, it is a difficult thing to say. The outcomes are so varied, and it's so down to the situation and how you react at any given time. But it can end badly. You can be mauled by an animal that makes a decision to fight you. You can harm that animal if you decide to fight back. If we were armed, for instance. But you don't want to get into that situation, and so we try as much as what we can to try and be as quiet as we can in some instances. And in thick bush areas, I like to make a noise so that animals that are in front of us actually know that we're coming and can either move off or growl at us from a relative distance away. So that's that really, Corey. I hope I answered your question over there. I mean, the best thing to say is come over to Africa, come on a walk into something big and scary, and see how you feel after the end of that. It is a thing that will change your life forever. It's like being in a car accident, I suppose, or jumping off a bridge with an elastic band tied to your ankle. It's definitely a life-changing experience. Come along. Now, Marie, you've asked me what is the oddest thing that I've ever ventured upon in the bush while on foot, I suppose, Marie. Well, I'll answer it from the on-foot perspective, just because we're walking around here today. Wow. The thing that springs immediately to mind is one of the very first encounters I ever had with lion on foot. I was walking with my tracker and dear friend Mr. Richard Ndubani, and we were tracking some lion tracks through the bush on the road. And we were walking on the road, and the tracks of the lions just disappeared. And we were searching about. Now you can imagine two full-grown men walking around looking like chickens, trying to peck at the floor, looking for signs of these lions. And I looked up at a noise, and probably from about the distance of these trees that you see over here, just this row of trees that you see here, some zebras started to run at us. And in between us and the zebra, this lioness jumped out of the grass, and I'm talking about here, like 6 or 7 feet or yards in front of us, and leapt upon this zebra while we were standing there watching. And next thing, lions just came pouring out of the bush from all around us. At that stage, the pride of lion was 24 lions strong. It was made up of some males, 2 males, some females, I can't remember the exact number, 6 or 7, and the rest were all cubs. And they jumped onto the zebra with me standing right here, and with my tracker standing even closer. Richard was even closer to this action. He was probably 2 or 3 yards away. And they proceeded to ignore us completely and kill the zebra with us standing there watching it on foot. The cubs came out to the kill, and eventually after about 2 or 3 minutes, Richard judged it safe enough to say, hey, we can back off now. And we slowly backed away from the scene, and it remains to this day one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had in my life. I was on foot 5 yards or 6 yards away from this zebra being caught by lions. I'd walked into the middle of their hunt, and they were so focused on the hunt, they didn't mind us walking into them. They didn't stand up and growl at us. It was just one of those things that I feel, at least anyway, was one of the most bizarre things that ever happened to me or that I witnessed in the bush. Most definitely. Alright, this is a cat's tail grass, one of the first grasses that come up in the summer, and also a grass that does incredibly well in areas that are a little bit overgrazed or a little bit trampled. This grass enjoys those areas. Now I can see that this grass has got some flowers on it. Have a look close to the stem, you will see this grass has flowers, and believe me when I say that grasses have some of the most beautiful flowers that you can find. They're also one of the most advanced plants in the world. Grasses have only recently evolved, and they come obviously in all shapes and forms and sizes, have taken over most of the world's biomes in terms of biodiversity and biomass. And this is just nice to see. Those big full pollen heads closest to the middle part of the grass. Now I'm not going to pick this grass and tell you where it gets its name from, but you can see, well, I can show you really. You can see that the grass tail looks like a cat's tail, a bristled cat's tail. And also when it gets wet, it smells a bit like a wet cat as well. It's got this most unpleasant smell when you wet it and you smell it. Alright, why don't we go and see what Brent's up to.
Welcome back. Unfortunately, that report of wild dogs turned out to be false. Misinformation, but no worries, maybe we'll find our own wild dogs. Now, I've made my way into the area where the Nkuhumas last were. I've seen the tracks are now cutting further to the northwest, so I'm going to head towards Sydney's waterhole. That's probably the closest water from where they were on that buffalo kill, so there's a good chance they're in that area. Now, why VM and I have been gone for so long, we had one of those things that happens quite frequently out here in the African bush. We had to change a tyre, but it is changed and we are A for okay as long as we don't get a second one. A second flat, that is. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm checking very carefully here, see if the lines haven't meandered further to the west. Fingers crossed they haven't gone west or north. We're in a tight little corner of Djuma like this, and very close to boundaries on both sides. The Nkumas haven't been up into this area for quite some time. Now that they're moving again, that's a good sign. Hopefully they're recovering quickly. Maybe that last buffalo there was quite fatty after all. That is not a lion, that is an impala. And we'll keep going. Now there are some pans around here that hold water, but no tracks heading across the road, so more than likely the lions aren't in there. Oh, well, you never know. There's a big game path coming up ahead. Always a good place to look for tracks. And there are kudu tracks and elephant tracks. And hyena tracks. We've got one more game path to check. Two more actually. There's one here. Buffalo tracks, and last but certainly not least, the most prominent in the area has been blocked by an elephant. Now animals, you're just going to have to walk elsewhere. They can see they've come around it here. Let's have a look, just make sure no lion tracks there. They're not. Okay, we're going to keep on our search. While we do that, let's go see what Byron's up to.
We've got a beautiful red-billed oxpecker sitting on a big buffalo. Oh, look at that. Isn't that cool? Look at that big, thick boss. That's that middle structure of horn on this male buffalo. And the males get very thick bosses. You see that oxpecker is just cleaning its beak on there at the moment. The older these buffalo get, the thicker and bigger the bosses get, and that's obviously so they can challenge each other for dominance when they are wanting to mate with females. But these old males often form what we call bachelor herds. And let me just move forward a little bit for you. Hang on. And these bachelor herds can be anywhere between, well, one male by himself, but up to about 10 or 15 sometimes. Possibly find larger bachelor herds. So these old bulls that move around together, and they actually don't move very far. The reason for that is because they are older, they prefer just finding areas where there's some green grass and good vegetation to feed on, and some water, and most likely a mud wallow or two in the area. And what they would do then is they generally stay within those areas, and one reason for the mud wallow is so that they can bathe or roll in the mud, and the reason for that is it helps protect the skin from insects, especially ticks, like that oxpecker would have been looking for, the ticks on the buffalo. So if there is a big herd of buffalo that moves through, in those large herds, somewhere, there can be up to 200 or 300 buffalo moving in an area, especially in this section of Kruger that we are in. I've seen more. I've seen 400-500 buffalo moving together before in this area, and that's generally a lot of the females, the younger buffalo, or the calves and that with them, and then some young males or some big dominant males that will move with the herd. But those herds will cover huge distances constantly looking for food and water, so that's why these males, these older males, don't like moving around as much with them. So what they do is they move off into an area where they can stay, hang around and wait, and if those herds move past again, these males may occasionally meet up for a short while, see if there are any females that they can mate with, try and challenge some of the other bulls around, and then they'll move off again. So they don't. Some people thought that these older bulls get pushed out of the herd. It's not necessarily the case. They usually choose to move off on their own and form these bachelor herds. Occasionally they're called, or the other name rather, not occasionally, but the other name for these buffalo bulls, known as Duggar boys. Now the Dagga boys get their name from that wallowing in mud, and Dagga is a Zulu word, or the word is actually Umdaga. It originates from Zulu, and it's a word for mud. So these buffalo bulls would roll around in the mud constantly, so that's where they get the name Dagga boys from. And these are one of the animals that are probably one of the most unpredictable in the bush. If you are walking and you do come across any buffalo, you do have to be careful, especially these old males, because they can turn and they can come for you fairly quickly if they feel threatened. Generally they do decide to move off, but again, they're one of the animals that, as I say, are unpredictable. They'll run a little bit, turn, and they'll come and they'll watch you. And there was an author that wrote interesting, I can't remember his name now, but many years ago, and he wrote and he said he was a big game hunter, and he said a buffalo always looks at you like you owe him money. And I think that's quite an accurate description of a buffalo. They lift their heads up and they look, kind of stare down their noses at you, and when you get that look, you know you're potentially in for some trouble. They've just moved off now. A lovely view of those two big bulls. I was telling Jeandre the other day, we were driving, and I think Dave and I were on the vehicle, came around a corner and there was a buffalo bull not too far from us, and he just looked and wasn't happy and decided to turn and charge. No warning at all, turn and charge the vehicle, which is very unusual. So we quickly had to drive out of there, but it was interesting behavior. And again, it's just that they're unpredictable. That's the biggest thing with buffalo. Still a very, very cool morning, which is wonderful. It's nice to be out in these cool mornings. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this cloud cover starts burning off a little bit later. It's often what happens out here. Just want to have a look at something here. You know what this is? Not very clear, unfortunately, but I would have liked to have shown you, but these are just little civet tracks walking down the road. Yeah, little civet tracks. Might be able to see them, but they're not that clear. There are civet tracks. Brian, you wanted to know what age would these buffalo move out of the herd? It's difficult to say, Brian. I would say, you know, generally the average age of a buffalo out in the wild is maybe 15 to 20, or the age they can live up to, rather. And I would say maybe if these males get to about 12 to 15, probably decide that it's time to move out and rest a little bit. But yeah, the later years of a buffalo, and like I said, the average age that they can live to is about between 15 and 20 or 21. Some books will say 21 years old, but I think it depends on the conditions in the area. We've got some beautiful antelope over here. There we go. Some in Nyala. Beautiful female in Nyala. I don't see a male around here just yet. And there's another one. Look at those beautiful white stripes down the body. That one looks a little bit scruffy though. And it's not actually uncommon to see in Nyala looking a bit scruffy and ruffled up. I have seen it before on many in Nyala. They are beautiful antelope, and it's incredible to see how different the males look to the females. Some people think that they're two different species when they first see them, because they do look like it. They look completely different in color. These females with a reddish brown coloration, and the males have that beautiful dark gray coat, also with the white stripes though. And I know Brent was asking this morning, and he put out a quiz for all of you regarding the antelope falling in the Tragelaphus or Tragelaphus genus, and these in Nyala are in that genus, so they are related to kudu. These animals with the spiral horns and the white stripes or white markings on the body. So nice to see them. And the bushbuck is another one that we get in this area, also part of that family. And Virginia, you wanted to know, do the antelope stay standing when they give birth? I've never seen an antelope give birth, but from my understanding, they do. They do stay standing. They'll try and stand, spread their hindquarters, and then give birth that way, so that the lamb can drop down. And also with that little thud, it helps just kickstart all the vital organs and that. Occasionally, with the if I look back at giraffe, and when giraffe give birth, there's a long drop for that little foal when it's born, and what happens is, as it drops and hits the ground, it helps just kickstart the heart, make sure it's breathing properly, and also mainly the breathing rather than the heart, but also to snap the umbilical cord. So as it drops, that snaps. And I think it's similar with these antelope, and from what I've heard, like I said, I've never seen an antelope give birth though, but they do give birth standing up, so that the lamb or calf can drop out and maybe snap that umbilical cord, and also help kickstart the breathing a bit, and hopefully also to try and remove some of that placenta that would be around the antelope. Those Nyala seem to have moved off, and we're going to do the same now. Let's see what else we can find, and let's head over to Stef on Bushwalk and see what he's got.
We found a very interesting sign to show you today, and it's these two parallel scrapes. Well, we just got Xander stuck. There we go. We are coming to you live from the bush, and Xander does have a backpack on with a big aerial, getting him hung up in branches every now and again. But come and have a look at these two very clear scrapes, parallel scrapes. You got one here, and there's one here. And in the scrape, you can see that there's some dried fluid. It looks like it's been raining on the top of this scrape. Now, what this is very interesting. It's these scrapings from a bull rhinoceros. It's the territorial marking for a bull rhinoceros. And basically what he did was he came walking through the bush. He saw this little tree here, and then he started to scrape his feet like this. And while he was scraping his feet, he was urinating from between his legs, but they got this like hosepipe like urine. It comes out like a fire hydrant basically. It's the most intense thing. Probably flattened a bit of this bush. So this rhinoceros came walking like this, scraping the sand and spraying out behind him, and he sprayed out onto the sand. And that's what we're seeing. He was walking in this direction, and the reason why I know that is because here's all the scraped up grass and leaf from his scrapings of his feet, so he was going in this direction. But what's interesting about this is also the fact that if you rub a piece of bark or a stick into this urine and you smell it, it is the most pungent smell. It's quite difficult to explain. I'm going to try it. It sort of tickles the inside of your nose right in the beginning, and then whacks you at the back of your throat with this mustiness, I would say, this sort of spicy mustiness, a peppery, spicy mustiness, and that's what rhinoceros urine smells like. But why it's still here after all this time is quite an interesting story as well. And the fact that animals that use their urine and other various types of glands to mark their territory have elements in this urine and elements in these glandular secretions that keep that smell there for a long time. Obviously my sense of smell is very poor in comparison to a rhinoceros's and many other animals that use it as well, but I can still smell this probably days after it was deposited here. And it's interesting in that humans have now evolved a way to utilize this stickiness of smell. Ambergris is a was a very common use for the lining of a sperm whale's stomach. Is this incredibly pungent substance called ambergris, and that used to be harvested from sperm whales when they were hunted years ago, hopefully more than a century ago, for this ambergris, and diluted down to form the base, the stickiness in perfumes. And that was one of the more common of the uses for this animal exuvate, I suppose, was this stickiness diluted down. While quite pungent in its normal natural form, diluted down forms the stickiness that we find in perfumes. On a more local scale, you find things like civet, where we get our civet from, the African civet. Their anal gland has a secretion that is incredibly pungent and sticky, and that diluted down formed the base of perfumes, and in some areas still forms the base of perfumes. That earth note, or the undertone, that perfume note that carries with you for the rest of the day, that's made of these things. Nowadays, of course, it's all copied and I suppose synthesized chemical variants of these types of things, but isn't that incredible, hey? Oh, it is the most amazing. I wouldn't call it unpleasant, but it definitely is very, very, it stays with you a bit. Now, James, you've asked me what is the easiest way to tell the sex of a rhino. It's actually a good question, James, and it's a good question because it's not immediately apparent on the external features of a rhino what the sex is. They both have the same amount of horns. They are different subtly, though. Obviously, the male rhino, when compared to a female rhino, is much smaller. So female rhinoceros are much smaller than the male compatriots, and generally females always are attended by youngsters, so they have quite a good birth rate. So males are solitary, females are attended by youngsters. So if you're looking at them through the bush, that will be a telltale sign. Other external features is that the female from behind has got a spread pelvis, and her private parts, for lack of a better word, are much easier visible than a male's, who's got quite a compacted bottom. You can't really see a penile sheath on a rhinoceros. They keep everything inside. It's an internal thing with a little bit of skin on the outside. That's about it. And then obviously a male rhinoceros does what we've just examined here on the floor. He will walk and mark his territory quite vigorously. Other than that, James, you know, there's not much to tell a female rhino from a male rhino. It's just relatively, I suppose the easiest one is their relative general impression of size and shape relative to one another. That's about the easiest way to tell the sexes of a rhino from far away, you know, without getting too close. Let's take a walk. Oh, before we go, Anna wants to know, how old is this rhino marking? Well, Anna, I would say that, judging from the fact that this grass has already stood up, here, this is bone dry, the actual urine mark is bone dry, and the grasses that he did kick up here have already dried up. You can see there, have already dried compared to this grass here. I would say that this is a couple of days old, probably. Judging about the wind that we had here, I would say that this was probably done on Friday or Saturday last week, that this was laid down here. That would be my guess. Alright, so what we're going to do now is send you over to one of the others and see what they're up to.
And we've got some more Nyala and an Impala at the back there, but there is a beautiful big male Nyala. There he is. Now you can see the difference between the male. There's another youngster. You can see the color variation now nicely with that young male at the back and this adult male in front. You see how the youngsters, the young males, they will, when they are born and when they are young, are the same color as the females, and the older they get, they start to change color, and you get these beautiful gray antelope. As a big male. You see he's doing a bit of horn thrashing there. That's just territorial displays that the male antelope do occasionally. Isn't he magnificent? Beautiful, beautiful big male. Nice to see these different antelope in the same area, to see impala with some of the Nyala. But look at those white markings on the face. Look how they lift their legs when they walk. And they're generally browsers, but I think at the moment there's so many green little shoots coming out that they are not quite grazing. There's probably little plants in that they are feeding on there. They may be feeding on some of the grass, but I think it's little flowers and little plants that they can find on the ground that they are feeding on. So that would technically still make them a browser as opposed to a grazer. Grazer only feeds on grass. And Nyala tend to feed off leaves, off plants. I can't see what it looks like. I don't know. Don't know what he's got there. But he's enjoying it, that's for sure. Sit around and spend some time with animals. Things start happening around you. Look at that. So cute. A little dwarf mongoose. Now they're very gregarious, which means they do live in large family groups or large groups. And that was probably their home inside that little sandy section. Most likely some little burrows. And look at them. Oh, they are wonderful little creatures. The dwarf mongoose, smallest mongoose species we get here. Oh, there's a young one. Look at that. We do have many other mongoose species around here too. We also get the banded mongoose, which is also very gregarious. And some of these groups, these family groups, you can have anywhere between, I'm trying to think now, anywhere between 15 and 30 or 40 of them sometimes in some of the large banded mongoose families. The dwarf mongoose, maybe between 15 and 20 or so in large groups. And then we also have the slender mongoose, the yellow mongoose. Those are solitary. We do see them around occasionally. Also have white-tailed mongoose, the nocturnal mongoose, which is the largest species we get in the area. But those you generally see at night. It's funny, you just get a flash of mongoose running through the back occasionally. You see that? There they are. They're between those two antelope, and off they go. This is really lovely. Anthony, you say those mongoose are so fast. They are incredibly fast. They have to be. These little creatures need to rely on their speed and agility to evade predators. Sit for us. I just saw a cuckoo flying, everybody, trying to see if it's going to sit, and I think it was a great spotted cuckoo. I can hear it. I wonder if it's still flying around. It's just moved ahead of us. Why don't we see? Let's leave these Nyala and dwarf mongoose to continue feeding. Let's see if we can find that cuckoo. It's just up ahead. I can hear it calling. That would be a nice bird to see. I see it. I think I see it up at the top of that tree. Is that not it sitting there? It is indeed great spotted cuckoo. Right at the top of the tree. There we go. Ah, nice surprise. I heard you calling and saw it just fly through or fly past us while we were sitting with those Nyala. That's a lovely bird to add to your list. Any birders who are watching. Listen to it calling. It's a beautiful, beautiful bird. And it's great to see these cuckoos. So these cuckoos obviously all migrate and they come back for the summer. And it's wonderful to see them because they are very secretive birds and you don't often see them. And so you hear them a lot. They've all got beautiful calls and you can easily identify them by their different calls, but you don't always see them. And there it goes. Wonderful, wasn't that a nice surprise? Alright, we're going to continue on our drive and see what else we can find. Let's head over to Brent, who's got some wildebeest.
Well, unfortunately, our tracking of the Inkahumas has led us to some wildebeest. They've crossed into Buffelshoek, but apparently the tracks might be coming back towards Djuma again. I'm going to go have a look a little bit further, but I thought we would enjoy a nice herd of wildies. Some of those females are looking quite pregnant, so I think it's going to be probably a week or so before we see the first baby wildebeest. Now, of course, Wim's nickname is the wildebeest, and why is that, Wim?
Because of these things.
Because of those things, yes. What we meant to say, it's because he filmed the first ever live birth of a wildebeest last year or the year before.
Safari Live.
Safari Live first. Not the very first, yes, Wim. Wim being very particular, as he is. Snorting. What are you snorting at, Wildies? You snorting at us or you snorting at something else? Or you just snorting to get the botfly larvae out of your nostrils? So there is a specific species of botfly that does live inside wildebeest nostrils or sinuses, and that's why they do snort quite often. Such a strange looking antelope, the wildebeest. Sometimes referred to as the clowns of the bushveld. Yes, you're a clown. Certainly look like one. So even though they look like a little bit like buffalo or cattle, they are not. They are an antelope. A very fussy eater. And they like the short grasses. And they'll move vast distance, as you know from the Serengeti Mara migration, to find those grasses. They do have local migrations here in South Africa, but nothing quite to the extent. Also referred to as the brindled gnu. Gnu from the sound it makes when they're chatting to each other. They go gnu, 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 gnu. And the brindling you can see on the neck, the sort of darker and lighter colorations. And the one in the middle is the bull, the dominant bull from this area. You can see his horns are slightly bigger and more developed. And there's a yearling having himself a scratch. So that was a baby last year. He's done well to survive. Hello, ladybugs and daisies. Ladybugs and daisies, what a wonderful name. Here's wondering have we seen Gnormless, Gnorman, the Gnu recently? We did. Unfortunately, we were having some tech difficulties, but Gnormless is still dominating the southern plains of Cheetah Plains, keeping Normal Norman, his northern arch rival, at bay. Let's leave the wildebeests and go see if the Inkahumas have crossed back towards us. Kristen says, thank you, Vim. The first day ever watching Safari Live was the 20th of November 2014, and there were 2 wildebeests filmed being born at that day. Did you film both, Vim, or? Brian filmed the other one. How then did you become the wildebeest and Brian just stayed as Brian?
He got eaten.
Oh yes, Brian got eaten, or Brian's mom got eaten. Or everyone gets eaten eventually out here. But for those of you who might be new, so there was a wildebeest with a very deformed horn that gave birth to a young wildebeest that everyone named Brian, after Brian Joubert, the thumb. And of course, because the female was so noticeable and she had a very distinct deformity on her horn, she became known as Brian's mother, or Brian's mom. Firstly, Brian got eaten, I think, quite soon after he was born. Vim, I wasn't here yet. Yes, a day.
No, like a week or 2.
A week or 2 after he was born, Brian got eaten. Poor Brian. And then, when was it? Probably early last year, Brian's mother got eaten. We actually, I don't know where I put them, but we did have Brian's mom's horns somewhere. Must be on top of the carports, I think. Okay. Now, the Inkahumas apparently crossed around here and turning back. Adam has asked a very interesting question. Why do you see wildebeest walking in circles? Well, Anna-Marie, it depends on what type of circle. If they're walking a very tight circle and constantly doing that, that's a botfly infestation that's severed their optic nerve. Mostly, I would say, when wildebeest are walking tight circles, it's almost always going to be a botfly problem. But in big circles, I'm not sure. They are known as the clowns of the bushveld, Marie. Oh dear, popped my earpiece out. Let me just put that back in. So apparently the wildebeest, the Inkahumas, last tracks, were heading east along here towards a large Inkaya tree, which is a large knobthorn tree. So we're just checking slowly. Well, there's Rexon. And see if he's got an update for us. Nothing. They're flying lions. Ish. Giving us a hard time this morning. Yeah, I think they're still inside Buffelshoek. Okay, well, good luck. Hi, Bree. Bree is wondering, why are the lions not eating wildebeest and zebra and impala and stuff and keep eating buffalo? Well, the buffalo have been hit very hard by the drought, which makes them very easy to catch. And that's why they've been focusing on the buffalo. Now, we're pretty sure it doesn't look like they've come back out, so they're still in Buffelshoek. They're quite close to the boundary. Nice cool day like today. Fingers crossed they come back sometime during the day. Now we're going to start meandering down towards quarantine, see if we can find that baby impala we saw yesterday, or maybe find 2 baby impala. Hopefully that baby impala has made it through the night and no predator has caught it. Now we're going to freewheel down the hill. Well, there's some of you new viewers who are pondering, are we really live? Bayou, I'm talking to you. Of course we're live, and Bayou, please send us questions. And if you're not sure, oh, you've sent us a question, but the best way to get a question, because I think you're watching on YouTube, is to use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or send us an email, questions@WildEarthTV, and Bayou, we will do our best to answer them for you. Okay, so we are now heading back down towards Djuma itself. Oh, I can hear people talking on the Game Drive radio, which I turned down. Let's listen. Oh, that's very loud. Just turn it down again. Okay, no, nothing important. Let's carry on. What else is out here? I don't know. As I said, we have been issued with flood warnings for this area starting on Thursday or Friday throughout the weekend. Apparently on Saturday itself, not far, Hoedspruit, not far from here, is predicted to get 120 millimeters. That is an exorbitant amount of rain. And that would be flood weather. As I said, we might be swimming around Djuma if that happens. And if it does happen, let's hope it's a long soaking rain and not a deluge in an hour that'll wash away all the topsoil. Ryan. Now, with a downpour expected for the weekend, Ryan's wondering, is there any particular wildlife we're only going to see during the downpour? During and maybe just after, a lot of different frog species, and quite occasionally, especially after a big downpour, if the sun comes out, or even if it doesn't, a lot of, not a lot, but you've got a good chance of seeing certain snake species. So especially the burrowing snakes, what happens is their homes get flooded and they have to pop out onto the surface. So during rain you can see quite a few snakes. And what else? Who knows, maybe the deluge is going to flush our first porcupine out of a hole. We'll have to wait and see. As I said, I will only tell you it's raining when it's raining. I'm not sure. The weather is a fickle mistress, and every time you try to predict her, she generally proves you wrong. Now, another thing that might get flushed out of their holes during the rain is a stinging 8-legged creature, but we don't need them to be flushed out because we've got Stefan on foot who can find them all by himself.
For signs of their youngsters. So here's the scorpion here, underneath. Now scorpions, even though they have been on the face of the planet for some 300 million years or so, have evolved parental care. Isn't that an interesting fact? So this particular scorpion here, so uncover her there, she'll wait in an area for her babies young to hatch from eggs. They then climb onto her back and they piggyback a ride with her. She helps feed them until they have molted 5 times, and then from there they go off on their own. Isn't that an exciting fact? So scorpions make very good moms, at least for their youngsters. This here is one of the more common of the venomous scorpions that we find in this particular area. The olive thick-tailed scorpion. You can see that olive color of the legs there and there. That's the pincers. There's the legs down the side of the body. you can see that olive color. Although these things look quite small, I mean, they generally are. I'm going to put my finger nearby. They can sting incredibly quick, so I'm not going to put my finger too close, but there you can see a size comparison. That's my forefinger. This particular species of scorpion is responsible for the most stings in the area. And it's because they frequent pieces of wood that people in the area use for firewood. And so when you pick them up, quite often your finger brushes them and they can sting you on your finger repeatedly. It is intensely painful. It's not really that dangerous to adults, young kids I suppose, or heart condition, something like that can have a negative reaction to this particular venom. And then of course anyone who's allergic to bee stings needs to watch out for anaphylactic shock that can result from being stung by a scorpion, which can have a whole variety of different side effects. And of course what you want to try and do is monitor these things incredibly carefully. Now I want to see if I can show you if this is a female or a male. How you tell, apart from the fact that if the female had babies on her back, of course, is by the pincers. Males tend to have longer pincers. There you go, look at that, immediately on the defensive. And have a look at that long pincer. I would say that this is a male olive thick-tailed scorpion. Isn't that just amazing? The bright color comes from the fact that I think that the scorpion has probably just shed its skin. When their skin, they have an exoskeleton made of a substance, and chitin doesn't expand. Chitin is how the scorpion gets those parts of the chitin to control skin, and they have a new skin. And when their skin comes up to these most gorgeous colors, and their colors are nice and vibrant and clear. Oh, she is a beauty, or he is a beauty I should say. Now you can see the thickness of the tail relative to the robustness of the pincers is what makes this identifiable as a scorpion you should watch out for. So when you're looking at scorpions, if you ever have the pleasure of seeing scorpions again, what you need to do is look at the relative thickness and design of the tail compared to the pincers on the same scorpion. You can quite clearly see that this tail is very well developed, quite a muscular looking tail almost, and the pincers are quite fine and delicate. If it were the other way around, if the pincers were quite robustly designed and quite muscular looking, and the tail was long and skinny, then you'd know that that scorpion was probably not that venomous, that it used its pincers rather than using its venom. This scorpion obviously uses its venom to subdue its prey rather than overpowering it with the pincers. Very, very nice. Alright, Brent has got a woodland kingfisher to show you, and before it flies away, off you go.
Here we go, another woodlands. They're starting to call quite prolifically. I've seen about 7 or... There we go, on cue, good boy. As I said, that we're starting to hear them calling quite prolifically, so really, really awesome to have them back. And off we go. Oh, no, there's another one. Well spotted, VM. Can't really make, or you can see the blue, but it isn't quite that electric blue that we see when they are in shining sunlight, so hopefully that'll be happening quite shortly. Now we've come down to the area where we saw the first baby impala yesterday. No sign of baby impala just yet, but we shall be searching, and we'll try catch up with one of those big herds from quarantine. So let's have a look. Oh, hello Ali in New York. Now, Ali would like to know, do any of the animals follow a birthing season? Yes, a few of them. A lot of animals will give birth throughout the year, with peaks depending. Now, the impala, wildebeest, and zebra are very seasonal breeders. So from normally around the 10th or 15th of November, it's a little bit late this year, through to January, they will give birth. So we've seen the first baby impala yesterday. I'm looking for it right now. Oh, naughty elephants. And we are hoping that we're going to see quite a few more. Baby impala are awesome. They're very playful. But I think wildebeest, I'd say in the next 10 days or so, we should see the first baby wildebeest and the first baby pigs, the baby warthogs. They are the cutest. I think that's one of the things I look forward to the most with the coming of the rainy season. Oh, there's some herd of impala. Let's get a bit closer. Could this be the herd that is sporting the youngster, or maybe more than one youngster overnight? Now, there's a bit of an old wives' tale that impalas can hold out their birthing for the rain, and it was often said, but it's been turned out to be complete and utter tripe. So they give birth when they're due to give birth. They can't stop the development of a fetus to wait for decent rains. So I know that's one of those old wives' tales that's done its round in the safari industry for many, many years. Okay, well, we're going to keep checking these impala herds. It doesn't look like there are any babies here. So while we do that, let's go back to Byron, who's got another birdie.
And what a beautiful bird it is. A lilac-breasted roller, and I'm so glad Brent got to see another woodland kingfisher. Oh, and I can hear a red-crested coron calling too. We'll see if we can find that shortly. But look at the beautiful colors on this lilac-breasted roller. And I know a lot of viewers and guests of mine that I've had in the past, this is one of their favorite birds. I love seeing it. Oh, beautiful. I reckon there's about 7 different colors on the bird, and let's see what we can count. There's the white, that lilac. Let's quickly head to Brent. He's got something interesting there quickly.
Look at this, it's a black mamba. I know lots of people have been wondering about snakes. It's a big black mamba that's being attacked by starlings. And I just saw the starlings acting strangely. So I stopped to have a look. I said, Vim, I'm sure there's a snake there. And we just saw that mamba rear its head. It's quite a big one. And you can see that coffin-shaped head of the black mamba. Now the snakes are going to start moving at the moment. Oh, isn't this awesome? Right out in the open. You can see the starlings there, very unimpressed to have a mamba in the area. They might have a nest close by. And they were dive bombing it. They might try dive bombing again. Look at that. Okay, oh, in comes the starling. I'm just going to move a bit forward. Well, Kat in Tampa, you were asking for snakes this morning. There we go. A nice big black mamba, probably around 2 meters, maybe even a bit bigger. And just seeing where it's going. Don't want to get too close, don't want to scare it. Is it going down a hole there, Vem? Was that a stick? No, that's indeed the snake. I'm trying to see if it's going down a hole or it's just... No, it's not. It's coming out the other side. Now, it could be hunting for frogs, mice, baby birds. And you can just see those starlings are really upset with its presence. Do I need to move him?
Yeah.
Okay. If we're lucky, we might see it climb a tree. I've lost sight of it. Have you? Still got it, Vim? Let's watch the starlings. They tell us where it is. There you go. It's going to climb the tree. It might go into a hole in the tree, or it might climb the tree. This is spectacular. This is one of the best snake sight. What's the best snake sighting of the wet season so far? Now you see a very square-shaped head. As people say, it looks like a bit like a coffin, and that's why you got to be careful around them. Now, of course, you can see the black mamba is indeed not black at all, but more of a gunmetal grey. Now, the black part comes from the inside of its mouth. It has a black inside of the mouth. Now, black is always a colour of danger in the bush because a lot of animals can only see in black and white. Okay, let's move again. Let's try get around. Just wondering if it's going to go into a crevice in the tree, or is it going to... Oh, there's other birds joining in the mamba beating. Let's just try see what's going on here. Is that it there? Or am I seeing things again? Just right to the, just to the left of the base of the tree there. A little bit more to the left. A little bit more. No, it's a stick. Now, Easy, who's a new viewer, is wondering, do snakes drink water? Indeed they do. They do drink water. I think this mamba might have gone into a hole. Let's just try it. As I said, we don't want to get too close. We don't want to scare it away. Vim thinks he can see it. Back.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
There we go. No, we've still got it. We've still got it. That's the tip of the tail. Now you always got to worry, where's the head? Now, of course, they have incredibly powerful neurotoxic venom. You see those starlings mocking it? Now it all depends on how big you are, how dangerous a black mamba is. Of course they are very, very... Oh, look at that! Now the snake's in there somewhere. Now if these birds sense an opportunity where they can pick the snake without being bitten, they will do it. Where's he gone? Or she gone? Oh, thank you very much, James Richards. James Richards says, wow, Brent, you've got all the firsts of the season so far. Impala lamb, Woodlands, Kingfisher, and now a black mamba. Okay, let's have a look. Oof. So upset. I'm just trying to see if I can pick up any movement. I'd say, just judging from how agitated the starlings are, they're still, that snake's still just below them somewhere. You see the one there, somewhere there. Okay, let's try and move a little bit again. Might be just taking refuge from the bombardment in that little bit of brush we've got there. And we could have gone down a hole. Let's just have a quick closer look. I think he's gone down a hole. What do you think, Vim? We just got to be careful. Mamba is also the fastest moving snake. Fortunately for us, a vehicle is faster. Nope, I think he's gone down a hole. Or she's gone down a hole. Wow, wasn't that wonderful? Now, black mambas, as scary as they are, I'm going to tell you a very funny story that happened to a very, very good friend of mine, and who used to work with me in the bush, and his tracker. So they were on a game drive with lots of guests, and off they go. We're on game drive, we're going looking for lions and leopards, la-ti-da-ti-da, and often when you're talking, you're not really watching, you're sort of watching the road sort of out of the corner of your eye, and you're talking to your guests, you've got your tracker sitting up front there to spot things, and I'm not going to mention his name, just we'll keep him anonymous now. My anonymous friend and his anonymous tracker, as they were driving down the road like this, his tracker said, stop, 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 so he stopped and he turned off the car, and his tracker leapt off the front of the tracker seat and was gone into the bush, and he had managed to park on the end of a black mamba's tail, a very big one, about 3 meters, and where we worked there were no doors, and this mamba was lashing around and basically came into his footwell, so he leapt out of the car as well, and now there was a big discussion between him and his tracker on how to move the car off the mamba's tail so it could get away. So eventually they got all the guests off the car, made them sit over there, and they took 2 sticks, one long stick from there to push on the clutch and another one to put the vehicle into neutral, and it didn't roll, it didn't move. So then they went to the back of the car and they pushed it, and the mamba, happily for the mamba, made a safe escape, and so did my anonymous friend, his anonymous tracker, and the rest of the guests. Now, of course, a lot of you might think I'm telling that story because it was me. If it was me, I would admit to it, I promise, but without my friend's permission to embarrass him in front of thousands, I think I won't. Okay, now, so while we continue to search for the first and second and third baby impala of the year, or of the season rather, Stef has got some wonderful little insects to show you.
First, I just have to say what a fantastic sighting that was. It's not every day that we get to see black mambas out here, one of Africa's most feared snakes. I must say it's something that we keep our eyes open for here on the bushwalk, like nothing else. All right, well, you know what, we've just come upon an example of one of Mother Nature's most wonderful, examples of her complexity, and it's in this branch. Here we have a gall. This gall was formed by either the gall wasp or a gall midge. And what the wasp does, if it was the wasp, is sting the tree with her ovipositor and inject a growth hormone along with her egg. The tree then develops this gall, and the egg then hatches into the wasp's larva, which then eats the inside of the gall out and then pupates, chews its way out through that little hole that you see over there, and emerges as a full-grown wasp. But that leaves all these galls all over the place, and ants love to populate these trees. The tree itself is host to a variety of different insects, all that are preyed upon by the species of ant that is living inside it. And I'm going to try and elicit a response by gently tapping on this particular gall. See if I can blow in there and see if one emerges. But there's an entire family of cocktail ants. There, one just came out. Did you see him come out?
Yeah, one came down.
Now, they don't like it when their tree is disturbed. And so what's happening is, in response to me blowing on this, they're probably sending out a few soldiers to say, hey man, what's going on? The tree, in return for its sap that attracts insects which then feed the ants, gets protected from any pests. These ants will not tolerate sap-sucking insects and will mob the sap-sucking insect off of the tree, thus providing the tree with some protection. But isn't that already such an amazingly complex story? You got the gall wasp using the wood of the tree as a host for its parasitic, at the time, wasp larvae, the parasitic wasp larvae leaving along this home, which is then in turn inhabited by the cocktail ant, which then protects the tree from pests living on it. And in return for providing the ant with some food in the form of those pests and other insects that are attracted to the tree's sap and to the tree's flowers. Isn't that amazing? The gall on the Terminalia sericea. This is a Terminalia sericea tree, a silver cluster leaf. Now Liz, you've asked me what started my interest in ants, and do I have the same interest in termites? Yes, I actually have the same interest in termites. I just find ants a little bit more interesting than I do termites this year. Every single year out here, Liz, we have a different thing here that grabs my attention. This particular year just seems to be ants. There's just such a huge variety. They're so socially evolved and complex. It's just quite interesting to see them. Termites held my interest and fascination a couple of seasons ago, and they nonetheless just as interesting, to be honest with you. But to me, for sure, ants this year, ants, bees and wasps this year, all from the order of Hymenoptera, have captured my interest. Now, it's come to that part of the day where unfortunately I have to say goodbye to you. We're on our way to breakfast, so I just want to say on behalf of myself and Xander and Herbert, I just want to say thank you for joining us on this morning's bushwalk. I will catch you again on the bushwalk this afternoon or tomorrow morning at some point in the next couple of days. You'll be seeing me again. Anyway, wherever you are in the world, have a good day. We'll catch up to you later. You're off to Byron.
We've got a beautiful little antelope trying to hide away from us. I'm going to move forward a little bit. It is a tiny Steenbok, a little Steenbok, a male, and he's been very relaxed. He's been hanging around with us for a while. Let's see if we can get another view of him. Oh dear, there he runs. Now he's decided he's had enough of us. Hang on, he may stop again. Very, very fast little antelope, and look at that. They are beautiful, and it's nice that he's out in the open. Smallest antelope that we have here at the moment, or in this area. Well, it's between this and the little duiker, I suppose, and the little klipspringer, but I'm not sure. And I wonder if you've ever seen a klipspringer on Safari Live. Jean-Andre, do you know if you've... Yeah, there are no rocky outcrops. They prefer rocky areas, so that's probably why. That's why I don't think you have seen one in this area, but we do get them in the Sabi Sands, called a clip springer, or it means rock jumper. Oh, what startled that little Steenbok? Gone. Stopped again. Maybe it just heard something, got a little fright. It just shows you how quick and agile they are. If they have to, they'll run very, very quickly to get away from any harm or danger. You could see those little horns clearly on the male. The females do not have horns, so it's easy to tell the difference between the two. Oh, that was nice. A nice little surprise and lovely view of the Steenbok. Often they do run away quite quickly. They are very shy. But that little one ended up spending quite some time with us, which is great. Oh, is that a bit of drizzle, I feel, almost. I felt one or two little drops. Maybe I'm imagining things. Oh, plum-coloured starlings. Look at that beautiful plum-coloured starling. Oh, that one flew off, but still one or two around here. There were three of them. Let's just see where they've gone now. Bruce, you wanted to know, with the rain and that around, do some of the animals then have to move around and do their scent marking again? They are there. You got them there? There we go. Look at that. Look at those plum-coloured starlings. Wonderful. Look at that beautiful colour. Bruce, just getting back to your question, yes, the animals like lions and leopards would go and probably do a lot more scent marking after rains because it does wash away some of their scent. Look at that. Oh, this is great because I haven't seen these for quite some time. Another one's coming back there. There it is. 3 of them. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful little bird. I just want to read you quickly in terms of their migration, just to give you an idea. And I've got a little bird app, and these bird apps really are fantastic because they've got so much information. But I do find, obviously, it's more important to have a book. But these little apps, if you have a look, you can scan. They give you the distribution. And when they are migrate, when they arrive, what months they are around for. But because these, I think, so it says, they're common breeding migrants, so to southern Africa, and they're present from October through to April. So that's exactly where we are at the moment. So but these little apps will often tell you where they migrate to. So they basically just migrate to northern Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa, up to Senegal, Somalia, and then come back through down to southern Africa for the. But look at the coloration in those birds. So for the summer, for our summer months, I'll come back down. That was a lovely surprise. Nice little bird for those birders out there who want to improve on your bird list. So that was really, really great. Nice little sighting. Well, we've had a wonderful morning. I hope you've all enjoyed it with us too. Nice to see some elephants again, those big bulls that we saw earlier. We'll see you again this afternoon on Drive. I'll probably be on a vehicle again. And from myself and Jean-Ray, thank you very much for being on camera. Goodbye, and we'll head back to Brent and see what he's got before the end of the show. Goodbye, everyone.
Well, we've been searching through those impala herds. Alas, no sign of any new babies. Now, it is fascinating that we got to see that black mamba, and with its neurotoxic venom. And of course, I told you about the inside of its mouth. This is how it gets its name. Marco is wondering, how big can a mamba get? The biggest mamba I have ever seen, and it was an expired one, was 4.4 meters. Now, 4.4 meters. Let's go. Let's do it next to the vehicle here. Actually, let's go from here. Can you see my feet, Fem? Okay, so there we go. That's the tail. That's the head. That's the biggest mamba I've ever seen, Marco. 4.4 meters. There are reports of some being over 5 meters. Oopsie, now I'm just going to show you the inside of its mouth. There you go, the black mamba. And see, there should be a nice image of the inside of a mamba mouth. So there we go. There's that black, that black coloration of the black mamba. Okay, so you can see quite dark. Now they're front fanged snakes. I'm just trying to find my ears. Oh dear, making a mess. There we go. So I'm just trying to. There we go. So they're front fanged snakes. As to how old they live, oh, I'm not 100% sure, Marco. I'll double check quickly. But while I'm doing that, I'll just chat a little bit about their their teeth. So their teeth, they're front fang snake or New World snake, and basically, which means that their venom glands or venom sacs up, which are up behind their head there, have got muscles around there, so they're able to control the amount of venom they inject, depending on the size of the prey or whether they're defending themselves. So also, which makes them very different from old world snakes, is that the inside of their teeth is hollowed. So basically their teeth are very, very sharp little hypodermic needles, and the fact that they can control the amount of venom that they push in is one of the other reasons they are quite dangerous. But Marco, I'm afraid, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to find out for you, but they're normally, snakes like that are normally quite long-lived. I'm not exactly sure how long. I'm going to have to go research that for you, Marco. And but it has been wonderful. What a great morning. And it's always great when you set out to go track some male lions and you find them, and then everything else on top of that's been a bonus. Woodlands, kingfishers, and of course that wonderful black mamba sighting. So from myself and VM and everyone here at Safari Live, it's been absolutely splendid having you with us, and we will see you shortly for the sunset safari. Hopefully those lions are still around. Maybe the Inkahum has come back, but it's live, so you never know what's going to happen. See you soon.